ABC Wide Bay. Well, this week is Disability Action Week. River Knight joins us, and River is the co-founder of Developing Australian Communities. He's also had 22 years in disability, mental health, education, child safety, youth justice. He knows what he's talking about. River, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
River, what a sensational name. River Knight. Is that your real name?
It is, which means I've got to be on my best behaviour, otherwise everyone always remembers my name.
Well, it's good to have you on board, River. As I mentioned, it's Disability Action Week. How important is this to you, and what's your relation to disability on a personal level, or maybe even your family or friends?
Well, I grew up in a household where I had a family that were always in that community services field. There were always foster carers. We always had, up to 10 foster kids staying with us at any one time. My family's always been in that space, and myself, I had that diagnosis of autism and also Tourette syndrome. So, I have that experience, I guess, personally, but also I'm a carer. My wife has a neurological condition, so I'm a 24/7 carer for her, and I've been working in this space for such a long time. It's a real passion for myself, I guess, now working with service providers to try and raise that bar and deliver a disability service sector that we can all be proud of.
River, we're talking about discrimination, how people term certain things when they're speaking to people or about disability. I find it awkward myself. I'm not what to say, but I'm not quite sure is what I'm saying is correct. Is that an issue a lot of people have?
It is a big issue because the way we talk about people really communicates how we see people, how we view the world. So we can value, we can devalue, we can purposely, offend, but also, unconsciously and not necessarily deliberately offend, but just sometimes it's about just being comfortable to talk about people in our community which make up such a large part of our community, whether you're in Brisbane, whether you're up there in Wide Bay, up there in the Burnett. It doesn't matter where you are in Australia. There's at least half of our community over 65 living with a disability. We've got about 15% of the world's population, where we saw that We the 15 movement that came out of, they got a lot of attention in the Paralympics, which gave us a great way to really just focus on disability in our community. And I know you've got Kira Stevens up there, who did a fantastic job in the pool at our Paralympics. So it's an easy population to see as part of our community, and we want to value people in our community.
When you talk about disabilities, I thought it was a beautiful highlight that comes up every 4 years, obviously, the Paralympics. Does that put a different light on people's issues, and does it bring it out to the forefront?
It's a good opportunity to remind people that disability is part of our community because for some reason in Australia we don't like talking about disability or illness or ageing or all of those sorts of things that are really important, but it is such a big population part of the community. So Paralympics gives us a chance to really see people, and apart from saying, wow, that's inspirational, we also want to say, people with a disability are just simply people. So a lot of us with disabilities, there's no way I could swim the length of the pool like Kira does. I would drown before I got to the end of it. So, very inspirational seeing someone who trains that hard. But at the same time, there's so many people in our community that are living with disability, that are paying taxes, that have got mortgages, that are working, that are just people in your community. And that's what we want to really focus on.
One beautiful thing that is a reminder to me, when I was speaking to Kira's mother, Mel, she's just gone off, she's over in Tokyo, and she said when she reflects back on Kira's childhood, it was never what she couldn't do, it was what she could do. And there could be a little bit of difficulties, but somewhere along the line things would work out. It was just a very positive endorsement of not being living with a disability, but shining and making the most of life.
Well, it is, and when we're talking about disability, that's what we always say to people. We want to talk about the person first. So the research that Developing Australian Communities did really looked at how comfortable people were talking about disability. And then people sort of say, well, how should I talk about disability? So we say, talk about the person first. So we sort of say a person who has a disability, a person who uses a wheelchair, not someone who's wheelchair bound, because it just sounds so negative and it's very absolute. You know, if I'm disabled, it sort of sounds like I can't do something, whereas I might have a disability, I might use a wheelchair, but if I don't have stairs in front of me, I've got no problem getting into that venue. So it's about saying, what are the physical limitations? But when we talk about language, it's like, what are the cultural limitations, the emotional limitations? What are the limitations that our culture puts on us that make people feel like they can't be a valued part of the community? And that's what we want to work on.
River, for yourself personally, have you noticed there is a change in the community?
I think so, because when we did this research at developing Australian communities, we found that the younger population, so the generation Z's coming out of school, they reported probably about three-quarters of them feeling quite comfortable talking about disability. You know, maybe they're seeing more of it in the classrooms. We don't have that special education setting that's totally ostracised from the mainstream classrooms. And we just find that, you know, younger people coming up are probably having more exposure and having that modelling going on. And as people get older, the older generations find it, or reported finding it, a little bit more difficult to just know what's the right thing to say or just how to approach it. Because culturally and generationally, it's just a different lifestyle that we're now living in, where we just need to maybe talk about things in a little bit different way.
River, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Best of luck. Hope we get as much exposure as we can. Disability Action Week. Thank you for joining us on ABC Wide Bay.
Thank you so much for having me.